Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Things That Getting Started breakout session. I'm Ben. I'm a technical content writer at Things Industries. So I write a lot of documentation, and it's my job to make sure that Things Stack is easy for people to use. And I'm here with Kevin, who is one of the lead architects of the beautiful new console for our new, the version 3 of our network server, the Things Stack. And today, Kevin is going to go through and show you how to do all of the things that you will want to do when you get started with the Things Stack. So I'll pass it over to Kevin, and I'll be moderating the session. So please, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. And at the end, I will ask Kevin, and we'll go through them. Kevin, over to you.
Yes, indeed. So let me just share my screen, and then we can get going. Oh, yeah, that looks good. I hope you can see my screen now, but I guess you can. Otherwise, please tell me.
You can see it.
All right, nice. So thank you very much, Ben. So also maybe just from my part, so my name is Kevin Schiffer. I am working at the Things Industries, and I am working there on the console as both a UX designer, but also a front-end developer. And today I want to give you like a quick overview or like getting started for the Things Stack using the console. And so, I will go through some of the basic functionalities and build like a little like end-to-end use case, so you can see like a bit of a better idea what you can do in like a more or less like real life scenario. And so if you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A after this, but also during the session, always feel free to just shoot if you have any questions, and then maybe Ben can pick it up or I can answer it afterwards. So that is very much welcome. Let's get going. So what I will be doing is I will show you how to create a new application. So that is it's super simple. So actually there's not much to show. You basically have like one field that you have to fill. And then you can set a name and a description, but basically you just enter one field and then you can create the application. So I already done that, so I won't do this again now. So I have an application already set up right here. And so this is basically the screen that you will end up on once you created an application. And so I guess the first thing that you want to do after you set up an application is to actually end or register an end device. I've already registered one here, so but let's go ahead and add another one. I have the Things node here, and so I will now onboard this device. So I click on Add End Device, and then you can see the onboarding flow using the LoRaWAN device repository, which is a very cool new addition to the Things Stack, with which you can very, very simply onboard new devices without having to worry about all the specifics of the device, because that is all taken care of by the stack and the device repository. So my device is from the Things product, so it's the Things node. So we just go ahead and select that. You will already see that right now there's only one hardware and one firmware version, so that is being selected automatically. And so my device is for EU 863.870 frequency plan. So I just go ahead and select that. And so all that is left to do after selecting this, so basically the stack will know now how, like, precisely what kind of configurations it needs for onboarding this device, and then everything you have to do is just setting the frequency plan and other registration data. So in this case here, we will go with 863.870 with spreading factor 9. Which is the one which we are using here. And so the app UI, that is mostly something that you will get from the app manufacturer. In this case, of the Things node, the one that I have here, is just like all zeros. I think the older or the newer batches of the Things node will actually not have only zeros, but some other some other values here, but in this case it's just zeros. We will go ahead and enter the def UI. So I already have it prepared here. Put that in. Then we have to set the application key. So the console will give you the opportunity to just generate one if you don't have one already. In my case, I have one. I've already set one up and also uploaded it to the node. So I will just take this one, enter it here, and then you can set an end device ID. I will just call this TTN node 02, I think. Yeah. Because we already have set one up. So that is basically all you have to do. You can go ahead and register this end device. And so now we should be able to see the device joining. I'll just power cycle and see what happens. Let's see, 1 second. 1 second. Oops. So let's just wait a little bit. Let's see. Okay, let's just wait a little bit. And there we go. So as you can see, the device has successfully joined. And you can also already see the first data points pouring in here. So we have this nice little overview here where you can basically see all the stuff that you should be immediately be interested in. Also, if you go ahead and refresh now, you will also see the session information, which is still, like right now, it's not being shown, but once you refresh, since it has now joined, we can also see the session information. And you can also go, like you can click on the live data widget that we have here, and then you will get a nice larger view of the live data. So I've just clicked the button on the node, so you will see that there is one, there's one uplink coming in here, and you can already see in the preview here that the event was a button click, and you can see like the light value and the temperature value here, 24 degrees almost, so nice and cozy. That's cool. And if you want more information, you can just click on any of these events and then get like the full the full data. And as you can see, there's lots of data here that you can use for your projects. And also we have a nice little documentation section in our ThinkStack documentation, where you can also get more information about what all these different data points here mean. But this is just an aside. Let me just go back. So as you can see, the device connected successfully. There's one thing I wanted to point out as well. You already know, if you come from TTN V2, you already know about payload formatters. And so one thing that we added now is that when you onboard a device via the device repository, the formatter type will be set to repository automatically, and that means that you will be using the standard default formatter that has been set up by the manufacturer for this device automatically. And basically that's another good thing about the device repository. Like, it's just basically one click and everything is set up. But of course, if you want to make further adjustments here, you can choose any other formatter type that you want, including JavaScript, of course, as you know. And also, since last version, we also finally added payload formatter testing, so that is working now as well. Let me just give you a short demo of that. So if we take this raw payload here, go back to the payload formatters, and just add that as a test string here on frame port 4 and test this decoder. You will see that that is a valid payload, and also you will see what it would translate to if it when it went through the payload formatter. So cool. So now that we have the the device setup, what I want to do is I want to basically hook it up with a little application that I built. And it's a very simple application that will basically listen for connections coming in through a webhook endpoint, then store that information in the memory, and basically show it in a web interface. So I will show you this interface in a bit. But what we will first have to do in order to get this going is set up an integration. And as you can see, we have lots of different integration types already here. So MQTT, webhook, storage integration, and so on and so forth. So for this particular project that I want to do, we'll just use plain webhooks. So we can just add a new webhook. And then again, here you see, we already have a lot of templates which are available. So if you are using one of these platforms here, it will make it even easier to set up the webhook for those. But in this case, since I'm using like a custom app that I just built myself, we'll just use a plain custom webhook. So by the way, maybe also always important to know, so if you are also somebody who has like an IoT platform and you want to integrate with the things stack over via a webhook, then you can use the webhook template GitHub repository that we set up, which is public, and you can make a pull request and add your own template, and then basically have your own template being shown here in this place as well. And then we'll also give you the URL for this. But anyway, so we just want to set up a normal webhook or a custom webhook. So I'll just go ahead and call this Kevin's webhook. The format will be JSON. And so I'll just set this up to point to my own server. Oopsie daisy. And I think just like this, and then is webhooks. Downlink API key we don't need because we don't do any downlink at the moment, and all I'm interested in is uplink messages. So I will just select this here and add this webhook. Just make sure it all looks good, but it looks good to me. So add this webhook. So now every time data is coming in from my node, it will be forwarded via the webhook to my server and my application. So I'll just want to set up my little application here. So I'll just start it. Let's see what happens. So now I can go make a new tab and yes, go to my app here. Yeah, so you see like my app has started up, and as I said, it's very simple. It will just show whatever was the last data that has been coming in. So there hasn't been any data coming in since I have set this one up. So I will just go ahead and click the button on my node again and so trigger an uplink, and then I will just refresh. And so, as you can see, we have forwarded the information here, and we see the light value and the current temperature. So yeah, already quite cool. Of course, this is very simple now, but you can do, of course, whatever you want to do with the data. Yeah, so this is working already. So now what I want to do is show you another way to get the data. So now we're using webhooks, but also maybe you want to not get the data like being sent to my server, but maybe like fetch it yourself. And in order to do that, we need to have storage integration enabled on the things stack or on my application here on the things stack. So we can actually launch a request from my own server and launch it to the things stack and get like the historical data that has been stored so far. So that is what we will be doing right now. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the storage integration tab and activate storage integration. So that is just one click of a button. Everything is set up. You will already get a view here or a description of the API endpoints that you should use in order to use the storage integration. Next thing, since we want to view application data from an external entity, we have to also create an API key to authorize the request. So what we will do is add a new API key. So I'll call this storage integration API key. It's really just a name. It doesn't really matter. It's just for your own organization. And it's always a good idea to only give the rights that you really need for this. So not just always grant every right, but really see what is the actual right that we need for this to happen. In this case, it is reading application traffic. So it's the one below here. So uplink and downlink, even though we don't care about downlink this time. But anyway. Then we go ahead, create this API key. Then you will get the API key. You can copy it out. Make sure to do this at this stage, because afterwards it will not be possible anymore. So yeah, I have copied the key now, and I will now have to set up my my application. So I have a little. Can I make this bigger? Yes. So I have a little config file here set up. So, and here we need to enter the app ID that I created, which I think is TTN workshop, but let me just go see whether that is really the case. So go back to the overview, and yes, you can see the ID here, TTN workshop. So we can go back. So that is correct. And then here we need to just paste the API key. So that's what we'll do now. Obviously, normally you wouldn't show the API key to any other people, but for the sake of this demonstration, we do it anyway. If you want to steal my data from this node, now go ahead. But yeah, just always good to keep in mind that these things need to be stored securely. Okay, so that is that. So we will just source this new configuration and then restart the server. All right, should be fired up now. Okay, so now I have another endpoint here where we get the things from storage. So yeah, you will not notice any big difference here, because everything that has changed is basically under the hood. So now we don't store the data in memory anymore, but we will actually do a request. And if we go to my network tab here in the developer console, and I make a refresh, we should actually be able to see this. Or we should be able to see this, but for some reason we don't. Okay. Wait, it should really be doing a request. Okay, I don't know, but anyway, I mean, yeah, what it should be doing, and I'm pretty sure that is actually what it does. Yeah, it will launch a request to the endpoint here that was shown in the storage integration, specifically this one. And we'll fetch the data from that location, and then yeah, just use it directly to show it in the interface. And yes, so yeah, as you can see, there are like many ways to integrate your own application with the ThinkStack. I just now showed you two of those, but yeah, webhooks is typically the most straightforward way to integrate things with your own applications. So I just wanted to show you this. And yeah, so that is basically it for this small demo. I think, yeah, if you have any other questions, then I'm also happy to go through other aspects of the stack, of course. But just for the sake of brevity, I think we'll leave it here and maybe go to the Q&A. And I'm, again, very happy to answer your questions. Thank you so far.
The first question we have, Kevin, is your IDE Visual Studio?
No, it's not. Actually, I am a hardcore Sublime user, actually. I think at TTI, I'm the only one. But I really like the speed of Sublime, and also the plugin ecosystem for me is at least good enough. So I get everything that I need there. But also, I'm pretty sure if I switch to VS Code, there will be a lot of things that will sway me. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why I never did it, because I was always quite happy with Sublime. So yeah, that is actually my IDE. I can also show it to you here. So this is actually the app that I showed you in the demo. And yeah, I'm using Sublime, and I'm even using a bright color scheme. So that's also quite unusual, but yeah. But that's what I use. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, I also use Sublime Text. Visual Studio does too much, I think. Sublime Text is really simple, and I like it.
Yes, exactly. I agree. So, do we have any
questions? Come on, somebody must have some questions. Let me think. Okay, I will ask you a question. In what cases do you think webhooks would be more appropriate, and in what situations do you think that fetching data from the storage integration would be more appropriate?
Well, yeah, so I think one reason to do it maybe via the storage integration is that you could you don't have only the last data point, and you don't need to care about storing data yourself. So you can just rely on the thing stack to store the data, and then you could do things like plotting the data on a graph, for example, because you can fetch multiple historical data points at once. And if you would to do that with webhooks, for example, then you would need to have your own infrastructure to keep data stored. So you have to have your own database which stores the data. But so that's what I really like, that for these simple use cases, for example, we can just rely on the thing stack, and we know that we will have like an array of historical data available, and we can use that to do many things, such as plotting data and showing like data, how data developed in like historically in a super simple way. It's just like just one click of a button to activate it, which I also really like.
Cool, that is nice. Yeah, the easier we can make it for people to use stuff, the better. But yeah, so it sounds like webhooks are great if you want to get a webhook every time you have an uplink. But the storage integration is more appropriate if you want to query historical data.
Yeah, exactly. And it also changes the direction, right? So the webhook basically it comes from the thing stack to your application. The storage integration, you launch a request from your own application to the thing stack. So it just also flips around the concerns. So that is also something that might be sometimes relevant for you. Based on the type of application that you're building.
Great. Okay, so the next question that we have is there a REST and SOAP, they said client, but I think API?
Sorry, come again?
Is there a REST client? Is there?
The API that the thing stack exposes is I don't know if it's like REST compliant, but I think it's pretty much adhering to many of REST principles, and also for example the API of the storage integration, which I just go here, is also more or less a REST a REST API. So you have, in this case,
shared the API documents. So yes, there is an HTTP API. Yes, and it is quite RESTful.
Yes, exactly. And like REST is a big term, and also specifications are sometimes a bit vague. I think most of the time we try to adhere to the best practices. But it can be that there are some occasions where it wouldn't be 100% according to REST principles. But that should be really an exception.
Okay. And the next question, what other integrations can you have? Can you have an introduction for others? And maybe just giving some examples and then the webhook.
So what other integrations do we have? So yeah, so that's a good question. We're having now MQTT. So yeah, that is MQTT is like a telemetry yeah, data exchange standard, and so we expose this by default with every application that we that you set up on ThinkStack. And so if you go to the MQTT integrations panel here, you will see how yeah, what are the addresses that you need to connect to this MQTT endpoint of this particular application. Then yeah, webhooks, we saw that already. So, and also within webhooks, we have these templates. So that is one way also to integrate with many different IoT platforms. As you can see here, we have AWS IoT. Yeah, if you're using AWS, there is also one way to integrate, and also LoRa Cloud, which is also pretty interesting. Um, yeah, as technology, and yeah, so you can use that as well. For example, to do geolocation, so to see where your device is located, and some other like yeah, other applications as well. I'm not a super big expert on LoRa Cloud, but yeah.
I think LoRa Cloud also only works with STM, with particular Semtech devices. But in general, you can integrate almost any system with webhooks. So there are some webhook templates, for example, cloud providers. And then also in the documentation, we have some information about examples. So I know internally we use UbiDots and DataCake a lot. But basically any third-party service which accepts data over the web, you can integrate with ThinkStack.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's also a really cool thing. So yeah, it's really coming along with the list of integrations that we currently supply. Yeah, I think there will also more will be coming in the future, but I think it's a pretty impressive list already. So that is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yasser asked if there is some way to use Google as an integration. I think that you can create a piece of Google code to accept the webhook, which then writes to a Google spreadsheet. I'll try to look that up, but I'm not sure. I guess that there's a way to do it. It just might be one more step that it wasn't.
There is definitely a way to do it, for sure. Yeah, I guess also the most simple way would be to use like some webhook service or maybe some plugin for Google Docs, which I think also stuff like that or scripts that exist there. So you can for sure use that to then integrate it with a spreadsheet so that you will see that your data gets posted into a spreadsheet like right away. Definitely, yeah.
Abbas asked, can I use Min.io with it for storage? I'm not sure what that is. So.
Min.io, I also don't know about that. Sorry, I need to just no, sorry, I don't know about Min.io, but maybe we can pass that question along to one of our team.
Sure.
So I can't give you an answer on that, unfortunately.
No problem. I'm sure that we can, hopefully we can give enough information that they can answer the question themselves.
Yeah.
And that
so I'm wondering maybe a question, or is there another question?
No more questions. That's it.
Okay. So I just wondering if you guys who are now watching, like, have you already used the console, or have you already used the ThinkStack, or was it like the first time you've seen this, or maybe if you could just give me like a nice small feedback there, because I'm really interested.
So to all our watchers, what's your experience so far with the ThinkStack? Have you tried it? If you could post in the chat, it would be great to hear. And maybe actually, there are two chats. There's an event chat and a session chat. So if you're posting in the chat, make sure to click the session tab before you
So support for V2 was better. So do you mean support in terms of documentation or forum support? So how do you mean that? Yes, sir.
We do still have tutorials for doing integrations in V2, and we're constantly building that list, about 17.
Yeah, always make sure to refer to the link that Ben already posted. So we have documentation for the things stack, and it's getting very, very extensive. And also there's coming a lot of documentation for integrations as well. But we'll take that note and see that we make sure that maybe this is more highlighted. We are also working a lot on making like more inline contextual support or documentation within the console. Yeah, and so that should also help you to get the information at the point in time where you actually need it. So maybe I can even give you, like, just because we're here, and I'll just go ahead and share my screen again and just show you what I mean here, because I am actually running locally right now. So yeah, we have, so this is something which is not released yet, but will be soon. So for example, if you have issues also about certain fields that you need to fill within the console, we now have like these tooltips which can tell you what it is, where you can find it, for example, here for the frequency plan or for the app UI. So you'll always be able to know contextually, what is this field, like what is it for, what should I enter here, and so what can I do if I cannot get this value. So maybe if my manufacturer didn't send it to me, or I cannot find it, so we can give you like a starting point into how to resolve these problems right in the console. So this is also something that is coming up, and it's also one way with which we try to improve the inline documentation and also the support, inline support within the console.
Yeah, and part of the reason that V2 might seem a little bit simpler is because it actually supports a lot less
yes, exactly. Yeah. So also, for example, that is a great example also why the device repository is such a good thing. So in V2, in V2 we only provided support for one LoRaWAN version, so yeah, that was in that sense very limited. But on the other side, it also made other configurations in the V2 console a lot easier, because we wouldn't have to add so many different things. But now in V3, you can basically use devices of every LoRaWAN version and also every regional parameters version that the LoRaWAN specification offers. And so that also means that we need to gather a lot more information. And now with the device repository, we have like one source of truth where we already gather all this information, and so that you don't have to care about it. And that means that you can still get like the power of simple configuration that we now enable with the device repository and the console, but still have, and at the same time, have it very simple, but still have like all the functionalities that all the different LoRaWAN specifications give you at hand. So that is very cool. And one thing really to keep in mind also when you think about things maybe appearing a little bit easier or a little bit more straightforward in V2, that is also because it was technically at times more limited. So what is here? When can we use V3 with the TTN indoor gateway? Yes, exactly. Yeah, that is a good question. Also, we're working on that. So yeah, right now the indoor gateway only works with V2. That is, unless you make some manual modifications to the gateway. So right now, this is something that is still on our list. We have a little bit of technical things to resolve there before we can make this available. But I can assure you that we are working on this, and that very soon it will be possible to change the network configuration of the gateway so that it can connect with V3. So it is coming. Yeah. And I know we've been saying this for a while now, but it is really a thing. Maybe it seems more straightforward than it actually is.
And we will also definitely make it possible before TTN becomes read-only.
Yeah. And if you really need it for one of your projects, you can ask us, and we can also set it up for you. But maybe only if you buy us a beer afterwards, because now it's a manual process, and we're working on making this like automated within the company. Nice. So, is there a description how I can make the mentioned manual changes? So, actually, Ben, is there any like I think?
Yes, I believe you can follow the instructions for connecting the gateway to basic station, which I'll post now, and you should be able to configure the LNS address in the indoor gateway and connect it to B3 that way.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, there is a way to do it yourself, but it's not very straightforward right now. But at least it exists. Okay. So yeah, Manfred. Yeah, you will be migrating from B2 to B3. I'm very glad to hear that. And also, I think we're always very interested in hearing like your experiences when you do the migration. Because obviously it's also very important for us that we get as many people onboarded to B3 and to migrate. So if you have any roadblocks, then make sure to not give up, but to maybe ask in the forum in our community Slack and also us directly. And we're always happy to help and also happy to see what are the current roadblocks for people trying to migrate. Yes. Cool.
Okay.
So, unless there are questions, maybe we wrap it up. Or what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been a real pleasure to get to catch up. And thanks, Kevin, for walking us through the console.
Sure. My pleasure.
We are always. You can always send us an email at support@thetingsindustries.com, and we'll be around for the rest of the conference if you have any more questions. So looking forward to seeing you guys. Bye, everybody.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much also, Ben. And yeah, everybody else, see you around. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you.